First up is approval of the minutes. Any issues with the minutes? Councilmember Bergan, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, finally.
There we go. So
Thank you.
it looks like it's just you and I for now. I think Councilmember Jurinsky is going to be a little bit late. So first up was approval of the minutes. Any issues with the minutes?
No, I reviewed them and I missed, part of the meeting, but they look good to me.
Okay. On consent, we have item 3A, the January 23 sales tax. Would you like to go through that presentation or move into general business?
General business is fine with me.
Okay. So general business item 4A, the FIC Metro District and TIF overview. I think Lyle, you're going to be leading the presentation, and so go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, well, welcome. My name is Lyle Arts. I work for the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority. I'm also the Secretary Treasurer of our Colorado Science and Technology Park Metro District. I think we have Mike Compa on. He's the president of our Metro District. And I think Steve will be joining us, Steve Van Nerden. He's also on our Metro District, as well as Terry Velasquez from the city. And Terry from the university makes up that. I just wanted to give a quick overview and then let Anna Jones from our Metro District manager and Melissa from UMB Bank, who's the financial manager, get a little more, and Gigi go into a little more detail about our Metro District. Our Metro District was formed back in 2007, 2008 under state statutes by agreement with our then developer, Forest City, the City of Aurora, and the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority. We have two TIF areas now, and this is just the areas north of Montview, not any of the university properties south of Montview, which is owned by the state. We have two TIF districts now, TIF District 1, which is basically from Scranton Street east to the Fitzsimmons Parkway, and TIF 2, which we just formed, is basically from Scranton to Peoria, north of Montview. Back when we were trying to divorce ourselves from Forest City had put over $20-some million into infrastructure that they had loaned the Metro District. To get rid of Forest City, we had to sell some land north of Montview to the university, and the FRA had to loan approximately, I think, $15 million to the Metro District to buy out Forest City. So immediately the Metro District has a lot of debt. We sold about $20 million worth of bonds several years ago, all of which has been either spent or committed with all of the infrastructure we're currently building with our Boss Science 5 project and the streets around it and a large section of 23rd. Again, there's a pretty strong relationship between the city and our Metro District and the Redevelopment Authority. Just so you know, north of Montview, we did sell some land to the university, which we put into the Metro District prior to the land sale, so it's in the Metro District. Although the university doesn't pay taxes, as part of that land sale, we imposed a pilot on them, a payment in lieu of taxes, which when they build something, when they develop any of the property, they're responsible for a portion of the adjoining infrastructure, water, sewer, storm, streets, street lights, that whole entity. So with that, I just want to introduce Anna. Do you want to introduce her? Anna Jones is our Metro District manager. Do you want to just say hi, Anna? Okay. She's pretty involved on a day-to-day basis with all of us. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Melissa, who's going to give you a short presentation on our funding.
Thanks, Lyle. So let me just see if I can pull this up. I think you should have received in your packet some slides that detail.
I don't think we did.
Oh, you did not? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Um,
actually, I was gonna see if we had any, there was nothing in the backup on this.
No, we didn't have time to include them, so that's why they're being presented today, but we can share them after the fact.
Okay,
well, apologies for that. And I apologize. I'm in the middle of a conference right now, so I apologize for any background noise. So what you see in front of you, as Lyle was alluding to, is, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. We put together a visual showing what the financial relationships between the city, the Urban Renewal Authority, the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority, and then how that all fits in with CSTP. So as Lyle indicated, the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority advances to CSTP all of the operational costs. And on top of that, they also own a $16 million loan to CSTP, which is subordinate to the 2018 bonds. So with CSTP, it's comprised of two TIF areas, one being TIF Area 1, which was established in 2008 and expires in 2033. If you recall, state statutes only allow for 25 years for a TIF area, a tax increment financing area. So number 1 expires in 2033, and then number 2 was established last year, so that expires in 2047. Additionally, 3 MET districts were created. So MET District 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 issued the bonds in 2018, and it was about 29.6 million was issued at that point, of which almost 28 million remains outstanding. And District 1 issued those bonds, and then Districts 2 and 3 act as the taxing districts. So Andrea will go into this a little bit more. When you look at the map, you'll notice that you'll see the breakout between TIF Area 1 and TIF Area 2, but then you also will see how big the MET districts are. And MET District 2 is the one that comprises the vast majority of the tax revenues to finance the infrastructure. So with the 2018 bonds, in essence, it's the incremental property tax revenues generated in District 2, and then any of the public finance or redevelopment agreements that were entered in with Aura. So it's the incremental sales and use taxes, and then the property tax revenues generated in TIF Area 1.
so just to be clear, District 1 doesn't collect taxes. It just issued the bonds. All the taxes are collected just in the 2 other districts, and then they pay for the bonds that are issued by District 1.
Right. So it acts as the admin district, but it doesn't collect anything. It's just when you issue the bonds, you have to choose a MET district to issue those bonds. And in this case, CSTP chose District 1. But it could have chosen District 2 or 3 at that point in time as well.
And do each of them have separate boards, or is all of
No.
them?
It all is the same board. It all rolls up into CSTP.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you can see, but Councilmember.
Councilmember Bergan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is very helpful to have a visual, but it's a little bit still confusing. So when you said the university, obviously they're tax exempt. So they fall into the Metro District, but do they fall into one of these 3 districts?
They do technically. They do fall into TIF Area 1 and also, I think, part of District 2, but they're not paying any taxes as being a university. They're exempt from paying any sort of property taxes. So even though the land is there, we're not seeing any sort of revenues come in from that. But as Lyle said, there is a pilot in place that I think that they pay for certain capital improvements whenever the district moves forward with them.
Okay, and you don't have an ARI?
No, not to my knowledge, not from the university.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then one of the other questions, I believe was asked, was talking about the financing status. So what you have in front of you is a very high level depiction of where we are. So everything that's in the dark gray are things that we've already looked at, we've already explored. So there's the onboarding, and then we looked at various alternative financing methods rather than simply defaulting to a bond financing. We wanted to see, okay, what else could be out there? Maybe we take a look at grants, maybe we look at if there's any sort of bank loan available. And so where we are right now is really running various financial scenarios. So everything in the blue is really related to the financing process, the due diligence process. And so what we have here is a financing timeline. So with any sort of transaction like this, an integral part of it will be a market study that will detail the uses, the planned uses of the site, how much revenues we could potentially generate from that. And so we have a meeting set up on March 6th with a small working group from the board to discuss the various market proposals and then move forward with the firm. It'll take that firm probably about 6 weeks to put together the study for us. And so really what I should have started with actually is probably at the bottom where you see the dates in red. So with the 2018 bonds, they are callable in December. The IRS allows us to currently refund those bonds on a tax exempt basis 90 days before that date. So that's where September 1 is a key date. And this timeline basically works backwards from that date. So the latest or the earliest that we could do any sort of financing would be late August, with the idea of paying off and refinancing those 2018 bonds in September. And so this timeline, it can be scaled up or down, meaning tightened, shortened, or broadened, however necessary. But the next thing that we have on our to-do list is engaging a market study consultant to help us figure out the pace of development, what makes sense, what can the market absorb, and that'll help drive a lot of the financing questions. Does that all make sense? Any
Yep.
questions before? Okay.
No questions.
Okay. And then with that, I will turn it over to Andrea to talk a little bit more about some updates.
All right, good afternoon. Can someone pull up the map of the tax increment financing areas for the committee? Or do I need to share that?
I'll pull that up in just a moment.
Okay. So as Melissa indicated, we have it's one urban renewal area north of Montview Boulevard called the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Area. And it's made up of 2 tax increment financing areas. So if you could, there we go. If you can see that, those are the 2 tax increment financing areas. TIF 1 is the light blue area. It was established in 2008, and the monies generated from this tax increment are pledged for the payment of principal or interest on any bonds, loans, or advances to indebtedness. So this will go through 2023. And even though university properties or nonprofit entity properties are included within this, each time there was the addition of nonprofit entities into this area, there was a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot that was used, and in lieu of taxes, that jurisdiction went ahead and front forwarded costs estimated to put in some of the infrastructure. Okay. So the purple area on the west is TIF Area 2 that was established last year in August 2022 and goes through 2047. In the urban renewal plan, the revenue generated from this area is pledged to $83.4 million of new infrastructure to stimulate the redevelopment of the area. And then in each case, you can see what makes up the incremental tax revenue. So in this, it's 100% of at least 20 mills of district property taxes. So TIF Area 1 has 50 mills on it. But in case, because there's some issues of competition for development, we projected only 20 mills, which would draw, in case the Metro District wanted to charge fewer mills in competition with other areas for bioscience development. So 100% of those mills are part of the increment, 60% of the remaining property tax increment, and 50% of city excise tax increment, excluding occupational privilege tax, is included. And all that money is already pledged through the plan. We will do a public finance and redevelopment agreement once the district decides their capital stacking for how that $83 million gets paid back. Yes.
So, Andrea, Councilmember Bergan, go ahead first.
Yeah, you mentioned 20 mills instead of the 50 mills, but how do you pay down debt if you're not collecting the full mills, the taxes?
So this, the most of the debt that's been issued thus far has been in TIF Area 1. So there was initially, when we did the urban renewal area, some concern that the metro districts that would be established in the second TIF area might not be competitive with other bioscience parks at 20 mills, because all those taxes go into that businesses have to pay, go into their decision about whether or not to locate there. So the projections for that were done with a minimum of 20 mills. If they end up charging more, the metro districts, because Metro District 3 has not been there's some overlap in terms of some of the areas, and so Metro District 2 has 50 mills, but Metro District 3 may have fewer mills. And so some of those extra mills, if we charge extra mills, could be used to pay down the original debt in TIF Area 1.
So as projects come in, are they each evaluated on whether they'll be at 20 mills or a higher mill, or is that a blanket?
And I will defer to the Metro District Council on this, but they are in the process of making determinations about what their mill levies will be for the various districts in this TIF area. But it's been costed, and the 83 mills will float with, based on the development that's projected, with only 20 mills in case that they need to be more competitive.
The 83 million. So just to, Andrea, just so for clarification, so the TIF Area 1, that is paying down existing debt from the 2018 bonds plus the loan. Is that right? From that was to cover the buyout of Forest City.
Correct.
And then TIF 2, that 83 million is for new infrastructure to be built.
Correct.
Okay. 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 So that is essentially when we think about the future development, that TIF Area 2 is critical for us to be able to bond that 83 million for whatever infrastructure we need. Is that correct? Great.
That is correct.
Okay.
I think it's important to understand is as of today, there is no tax revenue from TIF Area 2
Right.
yet. There
Right.
will be in the future, but today there is no tax revenue from TIF Area 2.
Got it.
There are a few properties that you can see some of the buildings in the southeast corner of TIF Area 2. Those have actually, some of them, maybe one or two of those buildings have not hit the tax rolls yet. So based on the basis set when the urban renewal plan is approved, and I don't believe that building 5 was in tax. So there will be some very shortly tax revenue.
And when do we anticipate, or what is the projection? I know this is somewhat crystal balling the future. When what will we have to get to, or where at what point will we have to be before we can actually issue $83 million in debt?
It's a phased development plan, council member. So so they can issue debt in tranches, and as buildings are developed based on the development schedule, they'll be able to take tranches of debt, and the new buildings will pay that, will be expected to pay that back.
Okay, and I think Mike Compa, were you raising your hand or just stretching?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't have to do that.
That's okay. I couldn't tell. I thought your hand shot up, so I wasn't sure.
No.
Okay, other questions on this, on the map, on TIF 1 or 2?
Thank you.
Yep.
Do I turn it back over to?
Yeah, I think we want to go to Gigi now. Is going to give a real quick update on where we are now. The Metro District is now financially, and answer any debt questions you may have. Gigi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everybody. My name is Gigi Pangindian. I'm the district accountant. And my understanding is that this committee also would like to hear the existing long-term obligation of the Metro District. And I think that Lyle and Melissa and also Andrea had already touched on them, and they've already mentioned it. But so I'm just going to do a quick recap of it. So the Metro District's long-term obligations were issued by and are recorded in District Number 1, which is the operating or the administrative district. So there are 2 long-term debt currently in the books, and one of them everybody already mentioned, and it's the municipal issued in 2018, and that was issued in the par amount of 29,635,000, and the current balance of that bonds is 27.8 million. And the interest rate on that bonds vary from 4.375% to 5.25%. And as also other speakers mentioned, these bonds are currently being paid from 100% of property taxes generated from 50 mills, subject to certain adjustments imposed by District Number 2. And this is taxes coming from all the assessed valuation within District Number 2. So it includes both the base and increment. And then also other pledge revenue to the bonds is 85% of the remaining tax increments that the district received from Aurora URA. And that would include sales taxes, use tax, lodger tax, including property taxes from mill levy of overlapping local government, and currently it's coming from the Aurora Public School. And other speakers also mentioned that the pledge revenue also includes pilot revenues if there are any, and then the the other long-term debt in the district's books is a subordinate loan with FRA, and this loan agreement was entered into by the district and FRA in 2019 to evidence the repayment obligation of the district to FRA for previously advanced monies and also for future capital improvement loans to the district. And this loan is structured like a fill-up note. So the principal on the loan is being increased as FRA advance to the district. And the current principal amount of this loan with FRA currently is $15,568,000. And the accrued interest to date is about $1.3 million. And the interest rate on this subordinate loan to FRA is the prime rate published by Wall Street Journal plus 50 basis point. So currently this loan is being paid from any excess revenue from the 50 mils from district number 2 or from all the pledged revenue on the 2018 bonds. So if there's excess money after we pay the 2018 bonds, they go to this subordinate loan repayment. The other piece that is also pledged to repay for the subordinate loan is property taxes generated from district number 3. So district number 3 is the other taxing entity, but currently there's very minimal taxes that it receives. There's only about $3,000 assessed valuation on that district currently.
Gigi, I may have missed it, but the subordinate loan balance, what was it?
About 15 million. It's 15,568,000 is the principal.
Right. I got it. Okay. Councilmember Bergan?
Yeah, so earlier when it was stated that there was a payment in lieu of taxes, I guess from the university, then that's going towards that subordinate loan? Is that what you just said?
It's going to the municipal bonds,
Okay.
the 2018 bonds. Yep.
Okay.
Right now, today, there is no payment from the university because they haven't developed the property. Okay, when they develop the property, then their pilot will kick in. We did get a pilot from when we sold land to Aurora Public Schools and when we sold land to Compositive School, both of which are tax exempt. We did get a pilot from them to help build infrastructure.
That
makes
pays
sense.
down the debt.
Yep.
Okay.
So here's the question. So we've heard the university and some of the nonprofits that don't pay. Who are the current taxpayers?
Right now, it's AIMCO for it's important to understand the original apartments that were built by Paul's Development, which are now owned by AIMCO, 605 units, are not in the Metro District. They were built before the Metro District was formed. The new Fremont apartments are in the Metro District, but you don't get taxes for like a year and a half after the fact. The new hotel, which is not finished yet, the daycare center, which was owned by Children's Hospital, is a tax exempt entity, but they hired a tax entity to operate it, so that facility is taxed. The Fitzsimmons Credit Union, because they're a credit union, they don't pay the full property taxes, but they pay a small amount. So your question is very good. Is right now today, there's not a lot of people paying taxes.
It's just AIMCO.
It's AIMCO, it's Children's Hospital. There's the convalescent care facility was paying a lot of taxes, but because of state legislature, what they did, that was taxed as a commercial facility. Since it's a convalescent center, they got reclassified as a residential facility, which now they pay about half of the taxes that they used to. So that was a pretty big blow for us. So again, right now, it's AIMCO, it's Children's Hospital, and it's the convalescent center.
And
What
Children's
percent?
Hospital. Oh, go ahead. Who was that?
I'm
Is
sorry.
that Steve?
Lyle, what percent approximately would be paid by INCO of 100%? Any idea?
I don't know off the top of my head, Mike. But the hotel, when it comes online, will not only be paying property tax, we'll get a percentage of the head tax.
And is that in TIF Area 1?
Everything I just told you is in TIF Area 1.
Okay, so this is all just still for paying down the 28 and 15-ish million debt that's there. So when we get to the 83
Well, it's the 15 million. It's the 15 million debt to the FRA,
right,
which is subordinate to the bond
yeah, to the
funding.
bond, the 28
And it's
million
important to understand the Metro District doesn't have a lot of money because every year the FRA pledges about $100,000 for operating expenses for the Metro District. So,
right. And then the TIF 2, when we start to see tax collection from there and can issue those bonds in tranches, is there what is the priorities in terms of the infrastructure that would be built, or has it been established yet, the priorities of infrastructure that would be built with that 83 million?
yes, we've prioritized that. It's around current development projects and it's phased such as we anticipate the development progressing. We're not going to issue all $83 million at once. I mean, nobody will lend us that money without tax revenue coming in.
Right.
It will be interested in it probably will be excuse me, done in tranches right now.
So one follow-up to that is I know that we're working with this. We have the subcommittee that's looking at doing the redesign, if you will, of the master plan, and I would assume that plan would inform the prioritization of that spend. Is that right?
Well, we have that now. I'm not, the master plan update is a totally different thing. For the formation of TIF Area 2, we did phase working with our current master planner of what we thought the development was going to be. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, Councilmember Bergan.
It sounds like you guys need some bars and restaurants in there. Any plans? They generate a lot of taxes.
No, that's not allowed right now.
Ah,
That's not allowed. At one time when Forest City was here, we were going to sell land to Walmart for a large Walmart, which would probably at this point would have been a good idea because it would have generated a lot of taxes. It was going to be at Peoria and Fitzsimmons Parkway on the corner up there.
Yeah,
That would have generated a lot of taxes, but there was a lot of opposition from the FRA board and the city against that.
Because otherwise, the goal isn't to just generate tax revenue. The goal is to have a life and bioscience campus that could be, world renowned, and having a Walmart take up that kind of footprint wouldn't actually be helpful. I mean, having some sort of retail, and I think getting rid of, and I think this is part of the master planning redo process, being able to expand the number of units without increasing the footprint, and having more retail with, again, making sure that we're staying true to the primary objective of this campus, which is life science, biosciences, not just tax revenue.
right.
Right, but if you don't have taxes, you can't build infrastructure.
Got it. That's why it's got to be mixed. That's right. What was that the end of the presentation, or is there more? Wow, I think you're on mute.
I believe that was the end of it, unless you had further questions.
Any other questions? I have one. I guess it's about the board. So who is currently on the Metro District board?
Well, I think you're muted.
Okay, myself, I'm the secretary treasurer. Mike Compa is the president. Steve Van Nerden's on the board. Terry Carruthers from the university and Terry Velasquez from the city are currently on the Metro District board. And the way it works on the board is if you're on the board, you're technically a landowner we have three small, the state statutes require that the Metro districts and the members own a piece of the property. Each each member, I think, owns 5 or 8%. The rest is owned by the FRA and the Metro District of 3 small parcels of land, one Metro District 1, one parcel Metro District 2, and one Metro District parcel 3. So all the board members are technically a landowner. You have to be a landowner to be on the board.
Are there taxpayers on the board? And should there be by law?
I can't answer that question. Right now, there's no taxpayers. Well, we pay tax on the 3 small parcels we own, which is very minimal. But I can't answer your other question.
Can somebody?
I can. This is Anna Jones, and there are currently no other qualified electors residing in the district. So every election cycle, we publish as we would for any other metropolitan district. Right now, in this district, there are no registered resident electors. So, and that is a requirement to sit on a metropolitan district board. That will change over time, but we are not there yet. It's too early in the development, which is typical of the way districts are set up.
The people in the apartments that they wouldn't qualify yet? Not yet.
Most of the people living, the original 600 apartments are not in the Metro District. It would only be those in the new Fremont apartments. And just because they're living there doesn't make them eligible. They have to be a legal registered voter in the area.
Yep, got it.
Just being a landowner doesn't meet the qualifications.
Got it. Other questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 4B. It looks like it's me. So is Ryan on Lance? Thank you guys.
Yes, I am here and available.
Yeah, so I'll tee it up and then I'll Ryan and I have been having this conversation. So for the committee, you've probably heard me talk about this idea of bringing a 360 review process to the council, to our council appointees. The resolution that is in the backup, I know it wasn't an e-scribe, but in a regular backup, outlines a process. And what I've asked Ryan and the other council appointees to do is give some feedback on refining what I put in the resolution. The goal of it is to have something that will live beyond us so that we can have an actual process that will give us a better full picture of each of the council appointees' performance. So it requires them, HR, to reach out to them in advance, months in advance, I can't remember the exact timeline, and say, hey, give us your self-evaluation, which we currently get, but also give us a list of names of other individuals who work as subordinates, who work with you on a peer level, and even customers. So you think about with a city manager type, you going out to those people who do lots of business, who are regulars with the city, and allow them to provide feedback either through written form to HR or through over the phone, so that HR can write down that feedback and then compile it and give it to council to review. Those individual 360 reviewers, their feedback would not be seen directly by the council appointee. So if the city manager had one of the deputy city managers provide feedback, we would see it and we would incorporate it into our overall review, but they wouldn't see it. So it would be anonymous in that sense. But by having the various individuals provide that feedback along with the self-evaluation, it gives us a chance to then create one holistic, hence the word 360, review of that individual. And so it creates timelines by which they have to give back their self-review, timelines by which they have to provide us with names that they would want to contribute to their 360 review. And then we would have timelines for those individuals to then give it back to us. And then we would compile that and deliver it in a timely fashion. So that's the gist of the resolution. Then I'll hand it over to Ryan to fill in any gaps that I might have had and answer questions.
And I know maybe Councilmember Bergan has her hand up. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go, Councilmember Bergan.
And maybe I'm jumping ahead. Just when you said they will give us names of peers and other managers and possibly customers, isn't that basically self-selection of, you're not going to give somebody who maybe you have not had a good relationship with?
Right. And they yes. So the answer is yes, they could. But we can also choose outside of that if we decide we want to go beyond that. But typically in a 360, you ask for them because you want people that they work with that can give them ultimately, if you really want to grow in your profession, you're going to pick people who are going to give you an honest assessment, both the good and the bad, because otherwise you're never going to see growth in your profession. Now, can somebody just cherry pick? Sure. And I think that would be on us to determine if all we're getting is positive feedback on somebody, there's no real growth. Because the idea of a review isn't just to pat somebody on the back, but it's to give them, say, where they were strong, but also to help them grow in their role and identify where they're not strong.
Would we be able to say, let's say it's the city manager. Would we be able to say we definitely would like feedback from your 3 deputy managers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's a little bit part of the suggestions that I have as well. And I know Councilmember Zvonek has a lot of experience with this, and we've had a conversation about this. So I know I have some suggestions, and if that works, you want me to walk through some of that stuff?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. So just for the committees, I asked Ryan to take the resolution I drafted and then bring in his own resolutions, because my hope is that we'll iron something out, take it to study session, probably more changes be made, and then come up with something.
Okay. And probably it would be good to start off with a record that I'm Ryan Lance, the Director of Human Resources, and in my position, I am designated to assist and facilitate the city's council annual evaluation review process. My role is really to be the point person for the council evaluation and compensation committee. That committee does consist of the mayor, mayor pro tem, and then the chair of the management and finance policy committee. So last year I did, and I know Councilmember Bergan has been on that in the past. Last year was my first year of really being the point person for that committee. So I do have some recommendations of how that flow just works on an annual process. But last year, per the committee, I did draft a proposal for the 360 performance. So I do have at least some additional ideas and thoughts on it. And some of my suggestions, are including little things like changing it from calling it performance reviews and evaluations to maybe a 360 performance feedback, because that's what we're truly seeking, is that feedback aspect of it. I would really reserve the term like a performance review for the actual appointees' direct reports, which in this case are the 11 city council members. I do think there's a couple key things, like what type of approach you want to have. Do you want it to be more comments and written responses, or do you want it to have more of a quantitative approach where it has more ratings? I do recommend with this type of setup to have more of it as ratings and quantitative, so we can aggregate that information, but then provide an opportunity for comments if someone chooses to add that more qualitative feedback. I also do recommend a little bit of a larger respondent group than a smaller one. That helps out with, Councilmember Zvonek's idea of being anonymous. It helps out quite a bit with that. Some of the other things I would suggest related to who is going to be asked to respond, I do think it's a combination of some predetermined groups, as well as a list that the council appointees can provide. So an example would be some of the predetermined lists. Other appointees I think should be included. Maybe 2 to 3 direct reports, 2 to 3 indirect reports, some other department heads within the city, partners outside of the department might also be worth getting that feedback from. So anywhere between, maybe instead of like 3 to 5, and maybe it's more in that 10 to 20 range. And then I would also emphasize that we might want to provide some guidelines, resources, and training opportunities that are optional for those who are providing the feedback, just to make sure that they're doing it in a very, constructive way, but also providing an opportunity for the appointees themselves to be able to receive feedback and also use it as a growth opportunity and hopefully reinforce the things that are working well. And then I think the last thing is we do have the ability to facilitate much of this through Workday. So we can automate the process through Workday and collect that feedback, and it's a little bit easier to aggregate at that point. So those are just some of my initial thoughts and feedbacks, and more than happy to answer any questions.
And Ryan, I'll just add on the guidelines for the feedback. I think that's important because I think the natural reaction for most people is to just write the positive things and be like, they're great at X, Y, and Z, but you really want like, where can they grow? And so having some specific areas where you're saying we want this type of feedback is helpful. And one of the other things that I would like to see as an opportunity is that, and I've seen this having gone through these processes, that you'll start to see trends. If you have 4 or 5 reviewers, some people will have some individual comments, but you'll start to see trends about people's performance. And I think it's important for the council evaluation committee to be able to then follow up with that individual if they need to dig in a little bit deeper on something that is, potentially a challenge or something they need to overcome. So I think just fleshing out that process and building it in as we move forward would be helpful.
Yeah.
Other questions or thoughts? We're good. So Ryan, if you want to, I don't think any of us had any issues with the recommendations that you made. So maybe we add those into the resolution and we'll move that to study session and have a broader conversation with the rest of our colleagues and get something ironed out there.
Okay, great. Yep, I'll work on getting that drafts for you to take a look at.
Okay. Next up, item 4C, purchasing of city code changes. It looks like Brian is our presenter.
Okay. Actually, it's Bryn Fillinger. I'm the manager. No worries. It happens all the time. I'm manager of purchasing services, and we are looking at updating the city code that governs purchasing. We haven't done that in a while. So just wanted to take an opportunity to bring that forward. And there were changes to the code and track changes included in the packet for your review, but I'll just share a brief presentation that just highlights some of the changes. They're not really changes, they're just updates. None of the procedures are changing. It's just updates with clarifications. Waiting, okay. It says, I haven't practiced this and everything. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so just the brief presentation. Again, as I mentioned, the updates to the code presented here and in the packet are administrative only and do not represent changes to any of our purchasing processes. So just there's 3 notable updates that I wanted to highlight. First of all, these changes change purchasing's report from the Director of Internal Services to the Director of Finance. Of course, Terry is who we report to now. The second, we now allow only for electronic submission of bids and proposals. That has been an option in the past, but since COVID, we now only allow for electronic submission. And actually, this has been pretty popular among not only city staff, but also parties who are interested in doing business with the city, because they don't have to make the trip down to the city building and bring multiple copies of proposals. So the paperwork, is really cut down on paper expense. So that's been pretty successful. And we do accept them through the Rocky Mountain e-purchasing system. And that's the system we use where we issue all of our bids and proposals on a full and open basis. So we just use the same system. And now these updates specifically allow for job order contracts. These contracts are awarded based on a full and open solicitation process. And contracts are entered into with qualified contractors. And then when specific services or projects come up, task order awards are then made based on subsequent competition among the awarded contractors or through direct awards. And while previous code did allude to the ability to award job order contracts, and all the contracts awards were reported to council, this updated code specifically addresses them. So we have those included. And with that, those are the most significant updates. Otherwise, it's pretty much clarifications. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Councilmember Bergan.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. 2 questions. How do you rate vendors? Is it like best value? Do you use a criteria, not just best price, obviously, I would think?
Exactly. When we do requests for proposals, which we use for professional services, design services, we do include the evaluation criteria in the RFP, so everybody knows how they're going to be evaluated. With hard bids or construction, at times, especially depending on the complexity, we'll do a pre-qualification process and then ask for hard bids, but we always identify what it is they will be evaluated on.
Okay, and then just to the electronic submission of bids. So if there's someone who has a language barrier, they're not able to come in?
Yes, that at this time, that is correct. And that's an interesting question.
Brent,
Hopefully,
could I add that we could also help assist,
yes.
since we do have access to interpreters and such through the city. We can assist them to get to the appropriate channels. I don't think we've experienced that yet, though, Councilmember Bergan.
No, we have not. We have not, and especially because that's where we do issue our bids and RFPs. No, we have, and Terry's correct. We have not encountered that situation just yet.
Any other questions? Okay. Bryn, do we need to move this forward, or is this just information only?
I think we need to move it forward to study session, and then in the past, when updates have been made, we've even taken it then to study session and then full council, as I understand. Is that understanding, Terry?
Any
yes,
objection?
that's correct.
Any objection to moving item 4C forward? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to 4D. Teresa.
Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. I wanted to give you a quick update on the sale of the sewer bonds, the 2023 sewer bonds. We priced those on February 14th on Valentine's Day by competitive sale. We had a very good response. As you know, the bonds were rated AAA by Fitch and AA1 by Standard & Poor's, very strong ratings, and they were well received by the market. So we received a total of 12 bids on the transaction. There was only an 11 basis point spread between the winning bid and the non-winning bid at lowest and highest. We did get awarded to Morgan Stanley with an interest rate of 3.969. The 3-year treasury on that day was 3.87, so it was very close to the treasury rate, and a very good rate indeed. So we did close that deal on February 23rd. Proceeds of $45 million were delivered so that the sewer utility can go ahead and do their infrastructure improvements. The bonds have a term of 30 years, And the average annual debt service is about $2.79 million per year. So very successful sale. We're very happy with the transaction, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay. This is information only, Teresa.
It is information only.
Okay, great. Well,
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So that's the end of the agenda. So the next meeting, March 28th at 1 p.m. Any issues with that time? No. Councilmember Bergan, you're good?
I was just looking on my calendar, but I think I'm fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then we will meet then. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.